This is Jeffrey Jones, also known as Triple J, coming to you with the Community Podcast. What we say community is only common unity. That is the tie between you and I. The tie for all, the tie that binds us, the tie that makes us, the tie that makes us whole. Thank you for being here with us for this common unity. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm back with you once again. It was great. It was great working in the 25th Infantry Division. That was one of the best divisions I had ever had an opportunity to work with. I was 25th ID, 2nd ID, 4th 54th Infantry, 26 Cav. I've been in many combat arms units, but I love the 25th ID. And one of the things that we did there was we were prepping the field to make sure that this light fighter concept would work before they started to implement a full drawdown and take soldiers off the board. So what we did was we lost all of our heavy weapons. We lost all of our trucks that would normally transport some of our material. And we put everything on our backs and we went to the field and we practiced incessantly to ensure that we could get the job done. It was an experience. Let me put it to you that way. If you've never walked 38 miles in 18 hours without stopping, you couldn't understand.
With a full pack.
With a full pack. And when he says a full pack, let me enlighten. I'm ready to do a deployment to to Korea. So they wanted to see, well, how much are these guys really carrying? We already knew. So what they had us do was we had to go, bring our gear, get on the scale, and then take our gear off and get on the scale. And what they soon found out was the average soldier was packing over 100 pounds, somewhere about 110, 120 pounds on his back the whole time. The NCOs, we had to carry more. So our packs averaged probably about 120, 130 pounds. So you're talking about a guy who's going to carry this thing for days on end in the snow, in the rain, in the sleet. Didn't matter. We got to keep humping. So that began the phase of experiment to see how this light fighter concept would actually work. Give you an example. We had matriculated up this hill in Korea, and it's very cold. I mean, it's cold that day. So we get halfway up to the top of the hill, and that was our stop point. They said, we're gonna bed you down, you'll get up at 4 in the morning, and then we'll finish walking our way over to the assembly area. They got us up at 4 in the morning, but what they figured out was the road was so icy and steep that they couldn't get our meals up there. So needless to say, we didn't have any breakfast. And we started walking, it's dark. I kid you not. When we stopped walking, it was dark. And when you say stop for a meal, we got off the top of the mountain, and as we were going down, we passed by a couple deuce and a halves. They threw us an MRE, and we ate those on the move. So that's the type of thing you do when you're experiment with a new concept to see if it will work. And I'm sure they learned a lot from that and was able to tweak things a little bit better. I look at the equipment that's being used now with the modular packs and everything as opposed to the old Alice pack. So now people don't destroy their backs anymore, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I'd like to go back to something else. Here's this personal thing. You have two different entities that are in the Army. You have the officer corps, you have the enlisted corps. Now we work together to get the mission done. That's what we do. But the way we do it is vastly different. Now, when you're an officer, you're going to go get a brief. And they're going to tell you, look, this is what we're going to do. This is our objective. And this is what you need to do in order to get it done. And then that officer is going to sit down, use his experience and knowledge to plan that mission out. And he's going to come to those NCOs and sit down. And then he's going to break it down to us. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what we need to get done. We then in turn go to our soldiers and make sure that they are briefed the same way. But here's the catch. The focus for officers always has to be the mission. And while NCOs focus on the mission, because that's one of the things those Vietnam vets taught us, you got to get it done. You have to get it done. But the other thing they taught us was you have to take care of your soldiers. That's the bottom line as an NCO. You have to take care of the soldiers, because without them, you're not going to get anything done. So that was always our main focus, making sure those guys had the proper equipment, the proper gear on, making sure they were healthy, they were eating, they were clean. We had to make sure that all those things were taken care of to keep these guys in the fight. And I like to think that that light fighter concept that we worked on in Hawaii contributed a lot to the way force structure is today.
The training that you guys installed in those younger guys is more of the younger guys than it is of the sergeants, the non-commissioned officers. There's more privates, corporals, PFCs, that is really the cheap labor force that can get it done, like you said, than it is that lone NCO that hey, this is what it is, whether you like it or not, the mission comes first. But it's the part of taking care of the soldiers, knowing that, okay, hey, it sounds stupid to you because you don't have the big picture to it, but at the same time, our portion of the pie is that this is what we got to do. And this is what we train for. This is how we're gonna do it. And after that's over, we're gonna go home and throw it back.
Yes, sir.
So that was a good thing about it.
With the drawdown, here's one of the things that hurt me with the drawdown. I didn't start off a good soldier. I mean, I retired as an E7, which is okay, but I didn't start off a good soldier. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way that I was raised in my environment. I went to schools where if you didn't fight, you weren't gonna eat lunch, because somebody gonna take your lunch money. If you didn't fight, you gonna walk home barefooted, because somebody gonna be wearing your sneakers. That's the kind of environment I grew up in. So when I got to the military, I got in a lot of fights. I mean, I had 3 in basic training and 2 in AIT. I got to second ID, I can't count those. I mean, those would seem like it was every other couple of weeks. But back then, it was like not much of a problem. I mean, the NCOs, that was their way of, hey, y'all work it out. And we worked it out. So, you know, it wasn't until the drawdown, until I really seen it where that soldier couldn't exist anymore. If I had came in the mid 80s instead of the late 70s, I wouldn't have made it, because it took me a little while to change.
Understood that was stress management and let you fight it out, because guess what? You might have had an issue with somebody, but when it was time to do the job, everybody's on the same sheet of music. But let's get whatever animosity between us out of the way, but the job come first. So
Absolutely.
So almost kind of like how kids in the old days, we play marbles all day long, and when we get ready to go, we might fight for a minute because you took my marbles, but we right back playing marbles the same 30 minutes later.
Absolutely.
You know, so the kudos for and at the same time, that was under the auspices of the Cold War.
Oh yeah.
You know, the whole premise compared to the war of nowadays is that unseen enemy. Well, we knew we were preparing to fight Russia. That was the whole plan. China wasn't even a thought in the mix at the time. So that training was realistic, because if you go to Korea, the North Koreans the South Koreans had a 2-minute life expectancy once the Koreans crossed the border.
That's a fact.
The 32nd parallel. So that mentality, that real world mentality, kind of meant to me that this is real life. This thing might pop off while I'm here. I hated the Mickey Mouse boots though, man. You know, but
Them things hard to walk in, wasn't it?
but going to Korea is no joke from the realistic training side of the house. It's okay to go down to the Ville and spend some money in the Ville, but at the same time, when you out with them one-eyed buffaloes and the moon pie lady come around, they beat MREs any day. So that was a great experience, and I would tell every soldier, if you're coming into the military, you should do an overseas tour first, because that would tell you your real world mission versus kind of playing for the Walmart back here at the home station, whether you're going to Germany or whether you're going to Korea, but actually going overseas, that mission is more realistic than it is, say, hey, I'm going straight to Fort Stewart. Well, I'm running up to Walmart at lunchtime at Fort Stewart. I can't do that in Korea.
That's a fact.
Okay.
That was my first duty station, and he's right. That's the type of place you need to go for that first assignment. And I learned a lot. I was on Outlet. I was on Collier. I had to go north of the South Barrier Fence. And for those of you who don't know what that means you loading up with a basic load of ammo, the real deal, and you get your night vision goggles, and you're going out here and run live combat patrols inside the DMZ. So you're seeing signs of those guys because they're looking for you too. And you're following the signs, and you set up your ambush positions in this real world. And you get caught sleeping out there, you may stay asleep.
And if they decide to come at that time, guess what? You're the first line of defense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we went from inside the South Barrier Fence, and we sleep in the guard post, which Collier and Outlet, and they were big underground bunkers. They were big underground bunkers, and we had claymores surrounding the bunkers. We had firing pits that were 15, 20 feet deep, but we could see through them and fire out down the mountainside because, like they said, when it hit, if we didn't make it to Libby Bridge within 7 minutes, we weren't going to make it out of there. So at least they gave us a place we could defend for a while. And that's what Outlet and Collier was all about.
You know, like how right now the Israeli war with the Palestinians, and they're finding all these underground bunkers up on the hospitals and all. Well, that's the Vietnam technique right out. Vietnam had caves big enough for a deuce and a half to drive into if needed. Well, Hamas has that same theory. Okay, I don't have to be above ground enemy. Underground, I could go unimpeded anywhere I want to, and you know, now, which means a few smart people need to throw some grenades down there and cave in one or two. But based on the structure, they have reinforced concrete up under there.
That's a fact.
So you need bunker busters,
Bunker busters.
to blow that up, to clog up that up and cut that access out. But understand, the enemy that we will fight as professional soldiers won't be this Civil War stand up and shoot thing. Or World War II where we dig a hole. It is an unforeseen enemy that and at this point it will be totally remote control. Okay. Yeah. So everything will be push button technology, or somebody in MacDill Air Force Base will have toggles flying a drone across the world. Okay. And it's not a secret. CNN got all this information, so understand.
Netflix too.
Going back, not to change the subject for you, but what the Army looks like today, based on that warfighter's mentality that we taught, smaller but more lethal. Well, that's that precision insertion that the Rangers use right now. Remember when we had to set up the RIP course at East Range?
Oh yeah.
That was a Ranger indoctrination program, which was built off of the light fighters, because we still had to do, 1 week or 2 weeks of light fighters course.
2 weeks.
Out at East Range. East Range is what we called it, out in Hawaii, which was his training area. But only thing that was once again, throw it on their back, shoot, move, and communicate was the whole theory behind it. What we look like today compared to then, and I'm not even playing into the Persian Gulf into this yet. This is just us in the 80s thinking about Cold War preparation compared to we warp speed up to the present to right now where we're talking about, okay, we want small unit tactics. Okay, and with those small unit tactics, that Jeff alluded that drawdown takes away from your senior expertise. because most of the younger soldiers stay in for whatever reason. They came in for 1 to 2 tours, but the top is kind of scraped off like cream. You kind of give them the option to retire or reclassify, and it's kind of driven based on the critical MOSs. And with those critical MOSs, you try to rebalance the war fighters, so you're not critically short anywhere across the board. It's balanced out. Back in those days, once again, a lot of the females were not permitted to go into certain MOSs. Nowadays, warp 30 years forward to the future, which is present right now, we're opening up combat arms to some females. With that being said, as a young specialist in the infantry, I wanted to see some black officers in the infantry. Every now and then we saw one that might come in and they didn't stay real long, but they'll come in as they work their way through.
Yep.
But me as an enlisted person at the time, I kind of understood what it meant to have somebody look like me in charge of me. And I took that same mindset when I became an officer. At the same time, when I took over a Stinger unit in air defense, when I went to a battalion, I would tell you as a black officer, you still got to prove yourself every day. I don't care how good your last mission was, you always started from scratch for the next mission because of the nature of who was your evaluator that just thought that you're not his top block. Well, I think everything that I did shows that I'm a top block. And if he didn't see that, then I would challenge it. And not to be anti-establishment or anything, but in my mind, I always understand that right gonna show itself. What is right. But back to what I'm alluding to, as we evolved up to the beast that we are today, you have more and more women in key leadership roles, just as a mirror image of what society looks like. You know, they in the Fortune 500 companies, they talk about the glass ceiling, and you find they get a little tokenism in there, and then guess what? Unfortunately, it's easy for them to promote a black female because now I have 2 minorities that I check the block with versus a black male that's highly qualified to be that next VP. But at the same time, with those 2 blocks that I check, I have a black and I have a female minority. So now I'm considered more diverse as a Fortune 500 company, and that gives me a little bit more credibility when I ask for government assistance. And this all boils down to what type of government money can you get based on you checking a block with your diversity. Yeah. So that the benefits of a smaller force, once again, is twofold. But what used to be a male-dominated profession is easily being taken over by females making up their mind to come in, as well as males decide not to come in.
Because myself and Alex, we've had this conversation several times. And it's not to denigrate women, nothing whatsoever. And it's not to saying we don't want them in the job fields, because we do. But there's a difference. And here's one of the differences that we often talk about that I don't think we can overcome. A lot of us can't. We were taught, especially by guys, like we had a Long Range Reconnaissance Ranger from Vietnam, Sergeant Woodward.
Yeah.
We had several NCOs who always taught us, look, once you make contact, if you're in attack, you don't stop. Once you make contact until you're on top of that objective, if a guy goes down, you keep moving. You do not stop.
We'll come back and get him.
And that's what we're taught to do. Now, our thing is the guy's mind going to function the same way when he sees this female soldier go down? Because that's not what we're taught to do. We're taught when you see a female, you help her.
You help them, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know if we're mentally ready, and I'm not saying the female, I'm talking about the male. I don't know if we're mentally ready to get in that situation and still be 100% combat effective, knowing how we grew up and what we were taught about the two genders. So please don't get it twisted. It's not necessarily the female. A lot of times it's us.
Are just as capable of doing a great job as any male at be, but when we talk about desynthesizing the battlefield, take the emotional play out of it, when we look from a female gender as being a more emotional creature, nurturing creature, where you got Staff Sergeant Woodward be hard, and understand tough love. But at the same time, if it's that time of the month, or I'm cramping, or I'm having migraine headaches, the war don't stop for that. And at the same time, for the soldier, are we evacuating combatants off the battlefield because they're cramping? And I don't want to get this to be a gender comparison. My biggest, once again, as an enlisted soldier, I wanted the officership to reflect what we look like down on line. And that means, okay, if I got a platoon full of black folks, I should have at least a platoon sergeant or a platoon leader that's black also. That's just the leadership representative. Or better yet, a company commander that's black. Even it might be one in a battalion. Your demographics right now, just to give you a cue, from the 80s to now, is changing. Where blacks used to be the largest minority in the military, we're not even with the Hispanic population. And understand, the state of our society in the 80s and fast forward 20 years later to the 2000s was, once again, we had a small Hispanic population. You had a lot of immigration green card users, but guess what? It's their kids that are now the adults that are coming into the military. It's their kids that are citizens because they were born in the United States. Yeah. So it's their kids that are now creating that population push. So they get it from the fact that education gonna be the key to success if I want to succeed in America. Mom and daddy might be from Guatemala, Nicaragua, wherever, mid Central America, but those kids of the 80s generation are now the ones that are going to college, are coming out to be part of that officer spurt. And it's no fault to that culture. We have to do a better job of making our male population in the black culture understand that whatever you do in life, whether it's the military, whether it's working for Walmart, whether it's working for Saks Fifth Avenue, you need an education behind you if you want to progress as a career goes. Your key has to be that you're educated enough to understand the process of what it means to be in a successful company. The girls get it. The girls understand that education is key. Even if it means that I'm going to enlist for 4 years in the Air Force just to get money for my college education because I'm going to school. Okay. Well, understand that right now, the Air Force has the largest growth spurt for females, because you have more females that want to come in and want to go to the Air Force. Yeah, the Army's still hard. And that's their mindset when they say Army, well, I don't want to go to war. Well, all of the services go to war.
That's what they do.
Okay, the Navy's worried about the waterways. The Air Force worried about the airways. The Army and the Marines are occupying space. So understand what the girls are doing to make sure that if I'm gonna come in for just one 4-year, 3-year enlistment, that gets me my college education paid for. And oh, by the way, I like it. So I'm gonna re-enlist and stay here a little bit longer. Okay. Keyshawn ain't figured that out yet. He wants to twist his hair. He wants to get tatted up. Okay, and understand is almost that old pimp mentality. Back in the 80s and the 70s, we wanted to be like Superfly.
Yeah.
Okay, only because Superfly was a young entrepreneur. He had the money. He was making the money, and that's what we was equating Superfly with. Not that we wanted to pimp and distort and totally denigrate somebody, but because we wanted that business aspect of pimping. Okay, but at the same time, at this stage and point, that we're talking about the reflection of, I want equal representation, not just down here in the trenches with me, but the folks that's making the decisions for me also. So that should be the easy part. But once again, it goes back to your political dialogue, and what's politically led is that a smaller force can do A, B, C, and D for us. Well, who's in charge? Okay, it got to be one of us, because we feel comfortable with that. Well, the same premise with, and I'll allude this to the ESPN theory. In sports, when you say quarterback, you automatically want to think of a white quarterback. When I would tell you, I can name off several, from Warren Moon to
Randolph Cunningham,
747, from Aaron McNair. To you talk about these guys that had to go to a Canadian Football League to prove themselves before they're worthy to come back to the NFL. In the Mahomes of today, now I'm not even want to talk about Mahomes, a Michael Vick type guy.
Oh my goodness!
Because of he had the potential to break every record that has been set.
Hello, everyone. This is Sandra Jones, co-founder of Community Podcasts. I'd like to say thank you to all our listeners and viewers. We're asking for positive vibes only. Thank you and have a great day.